they're willing to change right now. But the bad thing is, if an administration changes, it could also change because Congress, in my view, has given far too much. They've abdicated too much of their responsibility to unelected bureaucracies. And that's where our office has been supportive of changes like the REINS Act, REINS, which is to rein in if an agency makes a rule that has more than $100 million impact to the economy or to business. That rule has to go back to Congress, and they actually have to vote on it. How great is that?
Right.
That's the way it should be. So lawmakers are on the hook for these rules and regulations that really have the binding effect of law. They're on the hook for those. And that's the difficult thing, is that they've abdicated so much of this to rulemaking agencies to come up with these. And the Code of Federal Regulations is a great example. What started out at a few thousand pages back in the 1950s is some 200,000 pages today. Those books that have all these rules and regulations in it, it's really skyrocketed. And that's, to your question, and that's one of the biggest, I think the biggest challenges is that you've got these rulemaking bodies that just create these rules that have such a huge impact. In our office, we're supposed to advocate for business and small businesses and say, wait a minute, the Regulatory Flexibility Act that stood up our office says you need to show that there isn't a disproportionate impact, these rules that you're saying need to be in place, on business, on small businesses. And most agencies are just rubber stamping them. We call them phantom certifications. The overwhelming majority of these rules are just almost rubber stamped, and they never go through the process that law requires. And that's where our office can also be effective, is to say, wait a minute, even though there might not be a current rule out there under consideration, we can, with the help of the agency, we can go back and we can say, this has impact. You guys didn't certify it properly, and let's try to make a change.
And I think, I mean, I love that you say that, because in business, right, in industry, it's the risk versus the reward for sure. But with saying, what's the impact, and they have to go back. We have committees that it's like, I can't spend, if I spend over $100,000 in IT, our team's got to go back and talk to the board or whoever and say why and what it is. So I think that that's great accountability for them. Like, hey, what you just thought you passed is actually costing us, a boatload of money.
Yeah. And it really, the REINS Act, also the Prove It Act, Prove It, would also empower our office, the SBA Office of Advocacy, to even be more effective than we are today. It's kind of similarly, they would require that agencies have to justify and prove it, why they need those regulations, and they aren't, in fact, burdensome on small business. And a small business can come and get relief right out of the gate. They don't have to prove that it's overly burdensome. It's just the other way around with the Prove It Act.
Yeah.
They require the agency to come back and prove that they aren't overly burdensome on small business. So those two pieces of legislation, if actually passed by both houses, I think one has been passed out of the House and not the Senate, and vice versa. If we could get both of those passed, that would actually help stop this proliferation of rules and regulations that are so costly on businesses, and prevent, the uncertainty